Good day, dear colleagues. My name is Alexandra Bochaver. I work at the Higher School of Economics University, and now I want to present you the results of the project that is titled School Bullying Experience and Current Well-Being Among University Students. Sorry, one moment. Yes. The school of how the experience of school bullying affects the future life of adults is discussed by researchers and practitioners not very often. But research shows that participating in bullying increases the likelihood of various mental and physical disorders in the future, as well as problems in social adjustment. For example, the experience of bullying as a victim and an aggressive victim increases the likelihood of anxiety and depressive disorders and suicidal attempts. The role of bully is a predictor of anxiety and depressive disorders, also substance use, antisocial personality disorder, as well as antisocial behavior and criminal offenses. Former victims and aggressive victims are more likely to suffer from psychosomatic disorders. Participation in bullying makes academic performance and employment difficult. It complicates the maintenance of family and friends' relationships. Research have found many difficulties that are at least partly related to the past experience of bullying. The aim of this study was to establish possible links between the experience of bullying in school and the subsequent level of well-being during the university period. The study used 4 psychological inventories, as well as several open questions about the experience of bullying in school. These questions were about the frequency of encountering bullying, the role which was played, as well as ideas about how bullying affects the life of the respondents now. The sample consisted of 274 university students. You can see on the slide the respondents' answers about how often and in what role they encountered bullying in school. Only 9% of respondents said they had no such experience. 1 in 3 faced bullying daily or weekly. Statistical analysis showed several significant results. Firstly, the frequency of bullying encounters is associated with anxiety in close relationships. Its level is lowest among those who have faced bullying daily. Perhaps this is due to habit formation and learned helplessness. Respondents who face bullying weekly have the highest level of anxiety in close relationships. Secondly, the level of avoidance in close relationships also varies significantly. Those who answered that they have no experience of bullying show the highest values, which confirms their tendency to avoidance. Thirdly, the level of depression varied depending on the role. The highest level of depression is in those who have been a victim at school. Respondents were also asked to answer whether they notice any consequences of their school experience of bullying now in the areas of relationships with other people, attitudes to themselves, study, at work, health, and other areas. The slide shows positive responses in light blue. Here you can see, yes, respondents notice such consequences. This slide shows quotes from the students' answers. These are examples of how past school bullying affects their think, how they feel and behave now. They list self-doubt, shame, guilty. Also, they call loss of trust in people, resistance to abuse, or the desire to help the offended. Students talk about a strong fear of condemnation in the context of study and self-presentation. Also, they list many mental and physical health problems that they think may be related to the bullying experiences. So we can summarize the results. Firstly, every third of the survey students encountered bullying at school at least once a week. Secondly, the analysis provided an idea of the delayed consequences of participating in school bullying for young adults. Both a quantitative and qualitative analysis showed that the experience of bullying at school does not pass without a trace. Quantitative analysis showed that the quality of close relationships is the most sensitive area to participation in bullying. Qualitative analysis showed that students associate a number of difficulties in the areas of health, self-attitude, relationships with other people, as well as academic and professional adjustment with past bullying experience. Such results raise new research questions. At the same time, they confirm how important and necessary it is to develop programs that reduce bullying in school. Thank you very much for your attention. Here's my email. You can write me if you are interested in this study or in collaboration. Thank you. Bye.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to my presentation. The title of this study is Investigating the Relationship Between Adolescents' Bullying Behaviors, Family Conditions, and Mental Health Across 42 Countries. Adolescence is a time in life that individuals are exposed to multiple salient influences. There's an abundance of research that highlights how family and peer relations shape the developmental trajectory of adolescence and lay the formative foundations for adulthood. It's therefore very important to nurture a healthy and positive relationship between adolescents and their peers, as well as adolescents and their parents. However, one way that peer relationships can negatively affect adolescents is through bullying. Research finds that there is a host of consequences of bullying, such as internalizing problems, suicidal behavior, poor self-perception, poor academic performance, and so on. Therefore, it's important to understand, intervene, and prevent bullying during adolescence. Parents, as mentioned, are also prominent figures in adolescents' lives. They, like peers, shape various outcomes. The research that supports this suggests that adolescents who enjoy positive relationships with their parents are more likely to have good physical and mental health, more academic motivation, and are less likely to engage in risky behavior. Having poorer parent-adolescent relationships, on the contrary, has detrimental effects such as more academic difficulties and mental health problems. Please note that it's important to acknowledge that there are multiple different types of family structures. Some examples of those are two-parent households, single-parent households, step families, LGBTQ parent families. This is important to discuss as family structure is found to be associated with adolescent health and well-being. As the current study focuses on single-parent households, I'll expand on the literature relevant to that. Data from multiple national databases show that there is an increasing proportion of adolescents living in single-parent households. Single parents and their children have poorer health outcomes compared to their counterparts in two-parent households. Also, youth from single-parent households have an increased risk of anxiety, poor educational and economic outcomes, and criminal offenses. At the core of this study is the intersection of bullying and family structure. Past findings show that adolescents living in single-parent households have higher levels of victimization, poorer mental health outcomes, and are more likely to bully others. Now that the extant evidence on single-parent households, bullying, social support, and mental health in adolescents has been established, I can confidently say that the intersection of these domains has important implications for policy and practice on promoting positive adolescent outcomes. The objective of this study was to focus on the experiences of adolescents in single-parent households by exploring the associations between adolescent bullying involvement, family factors, and mental health in an international sample. The research questions asked whether low life satisfaction and bullying involvement are more prevalent in single-parent household adolescents, if the association between bullying and life satisfaction is stronger in single-parent household adolescents, and if the protective role of parental support is more beneficial to those single-parent household adolescents who are bullied compared to their counterparts. The international sample that this study uses comes from data in the 2013-2014 cycle of the Health Behaviors in School-Aged Children study, a quadrennial school-based survey. The sample included 219,810 adolescents across 42 countries or regions. Multi-stage sampling was used to recruit students within stratified samples of schools that represented the regional, economic, and public-private distribution in each country or region. Either teachers or trained interviewers distributed the standardized questionnaires in classrooms. Finally, member countries obtained ethics approval to conduct the survey from university-based review boards or equivalent regulatory bodies. Here are the measures. Life satisfaction, which was the outcome variable, was measured using the adapted Cantrell's life satisfaction ladder. Participants were asked to indicate where on the ladder they think is most representative of how they feel about their life. Bullying involvement was used as an outcome and a predictor variable. To measure perpetration, participants were asked how often they have bullied others at school in the past couple of months. To measure victimization, participants were asked how often they have been bullied at school in the past couple of months. The bullying involvement measure was recoded to indicate a dichotomous answer. Family structure was measured by asking participants about their household and who else lives in it. The measure was then recoded to create a binary variable of single-parent household and not single-parent household. Family social support was measured using an item that asked participants about their communication with family members. This variable was found to be most highly correlated with life satisfaction in our sample. Thus, we used it in lieu of other family variables and in line with prior research. For material deprivation, we used the HBSC Family Affluence Scale. The summary scores were converted to country-specific percentile weights and reversed to measure relative material deprivation. To test our research questions, we used multi-level, linear, and binary regression analyses. We controlled for age, sex, material deprivation, and the nested nature of the data at 3 levels, that being individual, school, and country. Model 1 regressed victimization onto being in a single-parent household, family social support, life satisfaction, and bullying perpetration. Model 2 regressed bullying perpetration onto being in a single-parent household, family social support, life satisfaction, and victimization. Model 3 regressed life satisfaction onto being in a single-parent household, family social support, life satisfaction, bullying involvement. And we used interaction terms to assess the role of family support on life satisfaction with each of single-parent households, victimization, and perpetration. Finally, a 3-level interaction term assessed the role of family support with single-parent households and victims of bullying, as well as with single-parent households and bully perpetration. All analyses were conducted in Stata version 16 and used 5% significance levels. The descriptive results indicated that the majority of youth were not victimized, not perpetrating bullying, not from a single-parent household, and felt that they were able to communicate with their families. The figure indicates that poor life satisfaction is reported among adolescents in single-parent households, those who experience victimization, bullying perpetration, and who do not feel that they can communicate with their parents relative to their counterpart peers. The results from Model 1 in a logistic regression analysis revealed that victims of bullying were 33% less likely to agree that they can communicate with their families, 5% more likely to be in a single-parent household, and 17% more likely to have lower life satisfaction. The results from Model 2 revealed that bullying perpetration was 18% less likely to report feeling as though they could communicate with their family. Those who perpetrated bullying, 10% more likely to be in a single-parent household, and 6% more likely to have lower life satisfaction. The results from Model 3 revealed that relative to those who disagreed, those who agreed that they could communicate with their families had higher life satisfaction, and that relative to their counterparts, those who were in a non-single-parent household, who were bullying perpetrators, and who experienced bullying victimization all had lower life satisfaction scores. Table 3 shows results from the models that regress life satisfaction onto interaction terms between family support, single-parent households, and bullying involvement. Model 1 results show that the interaction of family communication and single-parent household status is associated with higher life satisfaction. Model 2 results show that the interaction between family communication and victimization is associated with higher life satisfaction. The interaction between family communication and bullying perpetration was weakly, but significantly associated with life satisfaction. However, the 3-way interaction of bullying perpetration or victimization, single-parent household status, and family communication was not associated with life satisfaction. These results provide supporting evidence of the risks posed on well-being by bullying involvement and being in a single-parent household. They also highlight the importance of family social support as a moderating factor in these associations. Several of the current study's outcomes are in line with prior research in bullying, mental health, family social support, and youth living in single-parent households. Past research reports that bullying is significantly associated with experiencing mental health problems and with being in a single-parent household, and that social support is positively associated with life satisfaction and negatively with depression. Past research also finds that family social support is an insufficient protective factor for the mental health difficulties adolescents may experience as a result of being bullied. What's unique about this study is that we build upon these prior findings by investigating the protective role of family social support for the well-being of adolescents in single-parent households and who have experienced bullying. To our knowledge, this study is also the first to show that although family social support alleviates some of the negative associations between life satisfaction, bullying behaviors, and family structure, it is not sufficient to counteract the negative association between all these factors. Of course, this study has its strengths and its limitations. A strength is that we use standardized measures and sampling protocols and had a large representative sample of adolescents in many countries. We also controlled for material deprivation, and therefore, the association between single-parent household status and life satisfaction cannot be attributed solely to socioeconomic disadvantage. A weakness is that we use family communication as a measure of family social support. Now, although parent-child communication is representative of family social support, the measure is limited in its scope. Including more measures of support and communication in the family context could have provided a more accurate representation of this construct. Given the results and the supporting literature, it's clear that there's a need to emphasize the importance of families as significant sources of social support for youth. An implication is that parents should be supported in developing and actively sustaining healthy relationships with their children. However, a reality is that this may be harder for single parents as they juggle various responsibilities alone. To mitigate some of the workload of single parents, stakeholders such as policymakers and executives can provide flexible work conditions and benefits. On a larger scale, family policies that provide benefits for single parents can alleviate potential financial concerns and time constraints, so they can build supportive relationships with their children. Past findings highlight the importance of providing socioeconomic support for the health and well-being of single parents and their children, and of reducing risk of their children being bullied. Other implications concern schools. It's evident that bullying is strongly associated with mental health and can be even more of a concern for children of certain social backgrounds, such as single-parent household status. Now, teachers and school administrators should actively engage in conversations about bullying amongst themselves, as well as with students. Also, adults in schools should be active bystanders in instances of bullying, and they should encourage students to do the same. Now, given the robust evidence that shows the relationship between family contextual factors and bullying at school, it's also important to use this knowledge by fostering school-family partnerships that work to promote positive adolescent relationships and well-being. Thank you so much for listening, and here's my contact information. Have a great day.
Dear colleagues, dear presenters, dear organizers, it's a great honor and pleasure to be here and present my previous research. My name is Tamás Pongó, and I'm a senior lecturer at the University of Szeged on the Faculty of Law in the Institute of Public Law, which means that basically I'm a constitutional lawyer whose research focuses on bullying and cyberbullying. And in today's presentation, I would like to introduce to you why I found very difficult to establish a model anti-bullying policy in higher education institutions. And thank you for being part of this discussion or presentation. So first, just an insight about the previous research activity regarding my my previous research activity. First of all, I had a research on cyberbullying, where I've tried to define how we should really understand the complexity of cyberbullying and the differences to bullying, whether there are any differences. So I researched all the 27 United States laws and anti-bullying laws, which use the term cyberbullying expressly, and also I checked every anti-bullying laws in the US and bills as well. And this is the legislative focus which I had. I checked the case though, mostly in the United States, and the researchers all around the globe, including Australia, Europe, the European Union perspective. So I tried to find a complex definition, including the legislators, the researchers, and the judges, so the jurisprudence approach as well. And then I had a empirical research, including and involving 126 students from K8 and K11 classes, where I had a survey about what they understand about bullying and how they would define. And also I won a national scholarship, and I spent in 2019 4 months in the United States, so a semester, with two host institutions, the Penn State Law and the University of Toledo. So what was the focus on my research? Basically, I understand that in a public education, which is a different establishment and different framework, there are anti-bullying policies. And I also understood that when we talk about bullying, we mostly think about school bullying, especially outside of the higher education institution. However, I live in a higher education facility. I work at an institution, so I had the idea that maybe higher education institutions also need research and also need ideas how we can tackle bullying in a higher education context. So as I read the previous cases and the materials, I found the University of Michigan case, which was quite a big deal in the United States, because the University of Michigan established an anti-bullying policy, and they involved different bullying definitions in their policies. The one was from the Merriam-Webster dictionary, the other was Michigan state law. And the speech first incorporated challenged them at court because they said that the definition of the Merriam-Webster dictionary is vague and overbroad. And this, of course, there were many other aspects of the case, but at the end of the day, the University of Michigan decided to exclude the Merriam-Webster definition. And that rang a bell for me, that probably there could be issues, constitutionality issues. How should we define at all, and what should we involve in a definition in a higher education context? So furthermore, I found a Smith and Kohler research who examined 276 faculty code of conduct, and they had some ideas. As you can see, they are citations from their work. They found only 8 had references to bullying, and none of them was defined and specific bullying policies. So I continued to research whether it is true or not, and I found Barrett and Wood's work, who found anti-bullying policies in the United States and Canada, and they said that yes, in the University of West Alabama or the Sacred Heart University, there are contexts. Of course, we can decide whether it's a private or public institution, but at the end of the day, I think the most important is that there is a research material where we can find anti-bullying policies in the university context or college context, so in the higher education one. So I needed to define in my research in the United States whether there are any key elements if we want to establish a higher education anti-bullying policy, which is a model policy. So my intention with the research was to create a model, a blank sheet with some crucial elements. And if any university is interested in introducing such a policy, then they have like some helping hand. Okay, how should we start? What should be involved and what shouldn't? And of course, it can be customized in any way. So first of all, I realized that you need a jurisdiction and the scope. And in the United States, it is widely known the substantial university interest test, which said that if it's a university interest and there are many elements, then it violates the local federal law, then etc. Then you can establish a violation according to the code of conduct. And I have some constitutional doubts that I'm going to discuss about it later. Second of all, you need to find a narrowly tailored definition. I think it's also for the legislators as well, not just policymakers at the higher education institution, because as you can say, for example, the Markin case in the state of New York, where they actually challenged the case, which was a typical bullying case. But the lawsuit, at the end of the day, the lawsuit said that, yeah, maybe it's a bullying case, but we cannot really do anything about it, says the judgment, because the law itself was vague and overbroad, because the definition wasn't narrowly tailored enough. And therefore, we said then the law is not good law, so we cannot have a judgment which said, yes, it was a bullying, and Markan is basically had serious consequences. He was acquitted. So I think that this is very important to find, especially in the US, maybe not so much in the European context. I think that in the European context, especially in Hungary, the freedom of speech and the freedom of expression are slightly different because we protect it, and not slightly, I would say they're very different, because we protect the freedom of speech when you basically on a, how to say, like on a dignity-based protection, which we provide in Hungary. So you hurt my dignity, and that is the foundation, the basis of the limitation of freedom of speech. And it is very different with the different tests in the United States. So maybe I would say that easier to define the bullying in a Hungarian legal context than it is in the United States. Of course, you need in a policy the violations itself. You can decide whether you want only student and student or faculty-student scenarios. The faculty-faculty could be an option. I wouldn't recommend that, but still it could be an option in bullying cases as well, and cyberbullying cases as well. And you need a reporting and a procedure how you actually conduct when any issue arises. And the anonymous reporting system was a question in my mind, whether it's good or not, because there could be like retaliation. And the only reason why I report somebody because I want revenge. And I discussed with student code of conduct leaders and officers, both at the Penn State and the UT in the US, and they said they have already an anonymous reporting system in student code of conduct cases, and it's not an issue there, because first of all, if they got a report like a signal, then they invite the students for an informal discussion and try to really explore and discover what the situation is. So I would say that anonymously, maybe a bystander could easily report if they do not fear as much about the consequences. And last but not least, you need sanctions. I would strongly recommend non-punitive approach, like if you commit a bullying or cyberbullying in a higher education context, then you need to organize an event or write an essay or go to like decision-making workshops. So something which is have an educative approach, but of course, in the more severe cases, you need stronger sanctions as well, even involving the expulsion as well or suspension. So what are the constitutional issues in my mind? The first is the substantial university interest, how you can really narrowly tailor enough if you want to do something in off-campus behavior. For example, like you're in the first year of the university, and you said that maybe the university did not meet your expectations, and you say something wrong, but you have a lot of friends in a former high school which decided that they don't want to go at the university where you are a student right now. The reason is because I saw many shares from the first graders who actually do not want to or do not say any good about the university, which really hurts, or I would say that it really bad for the reputation of the university, and it might cause a violation of substantial university interest. However, really looking at the case, especially in the United States, I'm not sure that if anyone would challenge a case regarding the university interest at court, that it wouldn't be found unconstitutional, like it happened in the Markan case with the law, or also it happened with the State versus Bishop case in North Carolina, where the law was challenged and they decided that it's too vague and overbroad, and therefore it's not a good law. So I think it is substantial university interest is widely known and used in the United States, but when you try to involve it into your definition, especially in a European or a Hungarian context, it's not easy. The second issue is, again, the definitions itself. Again, narrowly tailored enough. That's like the key word here, how you can define it. I would say that again, because in Hungary we have a dignity-based protection, and I think that the freedom of speech also it's also, although it's highly protected fundamental right, still I think the limitations are more. So I wouldn't say easily. You can easily restrict freedom of speech, but I think that it's easier to define bullying and cyberbullying in a Hungarian context because the different freedom of speech limitations compared to United States. Third of all, the freedom of speech issues, which you can decide again, like the Slitzer case or the Marken case or the State versus Bischoff case. So I think the freedom of speech limitations need to be involved in any case, but you need to be very careful and focusing on your countries. If you have like a constitutional court, then the constitutional court formal decisions regarding these cases, and also the university policy need to be in compliance with the, for example, the national higher education law, if you have so the legal framework. And last but not least, with the anonymous reporting system, I had the issue how we collect evidence about the cases, both offline and online bullying. And how we can decide and what could happen in an academic procedure. And what I decided to go on with is the preponderance of evidence standard, which is widely used in the United States Student Code of Conduct cases, which said that if it is more probably happened, the incident, than not, then we focus on that it has happened and we try to prove it, what really happened. It's compared, for example, in the legal cases like the criminal law, when you have the beyond the reasonable standard. So the standard is higher in a civil lawsuit and in criminal lawsuit than in academic procedure, and I would allow them to go them simultaneously, where it could happen that in the criminal charges you said that you're acquitted, it's not the case anymore, but in the academic level you could be like suspended, and this is what I really promote in my research. So as conclusions, if you want to establish an anti-bullying policy in your higher education institution, you need to be very focused on the different freedom of speech limitation approaches. In your country, narrowly tailored definitions are a must, no matter whether it's cyberbullying or bullying itself, or even the members who is a student, who is a faculty member. So I think that this is highly important. What should you do with off-campus online contacts? Whether you use the substantial university interest test or your country has a different test in off-campus behavior, which has a substantial impact on your own campus behavior, I think that's a question you need to decide. And substantial university interest might be a good bottom line, but you might need to improve and customize to your country's own system. And I think anonymous reporting system is the one which is helpful, and this is what I promote, and I decided that I think anonymous reporting could encourage bystanders and other participants who witnesses to report an incident, so we can easily tackle the situation. I hope, I'm sorry, and last but not least, I'm really a non-punitive consequences kind of guy, so I don't think that punishment is a good idea all the time, but of course, sometimes you need more severe actions when more severe cases occur. That's all for today. Thank you for listening, and I'm open to discuss and really to develop my research, and thank you for listening, and have a good conference. Bye-bye.